Hello everyone, Shamil Arslanov, an international master with cool glasses, is on touch. Why are you wearing a cool glass, you'll ask? But because today I will talk about a very cool opening, which is called the central opening. In the central opening you'll see the starting position on the board, and first of all I want to show you how it turned out. It turns out if you play with white pieces, you move from the king to two squares, your opponent copies you, and here you immediately take the e5 pawn. What is the essence of this promotion, friends? And it's actually simple. We take aim at the e5 pawn, we already have two open bishops at once, and the black pieces only have an open dark-squared bishop. They take it away, and now we take away the queen. Our queen stands very cool in the center of the board because, like the sun, she literally warms up the entire chessboard with her red rays. But there is one problem, and you want to say that now the knight is attacking the queen. Yes, this is true, this is the main line. Almost all players from beginners to super grandmasters go here. And here the whites have a fork. They can walk to the left, to the right, down and to the right. But you definitely shouldn't play the queen on c3, because due to the breaking of b4, the knight supports the bishop, the pin and white dies. And today we will talk about the queen move on e3, which is called the Poulsen variation, what I would call it the Ian Nepomniachtchi variation, because in general I would name the entire opening in honor of the Russian grandmasters, because he played hundreds of games here, if not thousands of games. And also repeatedly in interviews he emphasized that this was his favorite debut. So friends, what is the essential of the central opening? White has determined the position in the center. Now black does not have the e7 pawn. We still have the e4 pawn. After you and I break the figures, something like this, our rook along the vertical d, if this bishop retreats somewhere to the side, will already be active. Of course, white's goal is to play unbalanced chess with versatile castlings and rush pawns on the king's side, or to use piece pressure. For example, through the maneuvers queen g3 or queen g7, as we will see later. Of course, this debut has its problems. White wasted two precious tempos with his queen. This, of course, is not very good. But at the same time, the queen on e3, I emphasize once again, will be drawn to the kings. And also from this position he prevents this dark-squared bishop from developing on c5. And to make it easier for you to understand why awaits black here in the event of a mediocre game, let me show you one miniature which has probably covered all the chess textbooks. Black played you at step 4 because he couldn't go to c5. White naturally plays with the pawn, why not attack the bishop? Bishop retreats. Now white expands the light square bishop onto the a2 g8 diagonal. Black for some reason didn't like the move f6 because of the pawn move to e5. Perhaps so they decided to put it on e7 just in case. Now white goes to queen g3 exactly as I told you. Attack the g7 pawn, black castle short, and don't rush from the h6 bishop. Stop, stop, stop. There is no need to rush with this move. Knight g6 and black are okay, and we will simply use forced march of the h4 pawn. In our minds we scared h5, then we scared h6, or maybe h5 and then the bishop on h6. That's why black played knight g6, friends. White moves the pawn straight and attacks the knight. The knight went to e5 and attacks the bishop in response. They are well-developed castle, 3 figures in battle. White pawn has already moved, one bishop of some kind a queen, but he's g5. Hello queen, but you can't close with a pawn because it's connected. For these reasons black played queen e8 and white plays bishop f6. We begin to put pressure on the tight figure. We just want to checkmate in one move. Black seems to have only one move. They don't have time to take our bishop because of checkmate. g6 the move was made. White takes the g6 pawn, black takes with his knight, and here is a surprise for the new year, friends, that has passed. Taking f7 is not tight, taking hg is possible, but a nice mate with the help of a bishop and rook. I hope that you liked this game, this miniature, and I will now return to my original position and I'll tell you the second unsuccessful game on Black's part when he really tries to start with the development of the f8 bishop. This happens when they played b6, which is generally logical. They went to develop the bishop with an attack. Why not? But here comes another problem. White plays knight c3, bishop c5, attack on the queen. The queen moved away and look, we're beginning to progress g7. We begin to press c7. And here perhaps black should prefer the entry g6, although this significantly weakens the black squares on the king side. That's why the statistics say, and in general, I want to play queen f6, but this spot entry is already losing, because knight d5 goes knight, attack c7, attack f6, and there is already a fork and everything else. Entering queen d6 or queen e5 results in the same option. We simply give a check first, then take the queen, and then take the rook. Cases of queen move 6 are the same. We first take with check, then we take the queen, and then we take the rook. Well, I hope that these two short examples allow you to understand a little better what is going on here. If the black game is very mediocre, I would say so. That's why we look at the main options. And the main option is to move the knight to f6. Black wants to move the knight first, then move the bishop, and then want to castle. But why are there some players who don't make this knight move? Because they are afraid of the move e5, which is actually not good, because black has a knight move to g4, and after queen e2 the knight is attacked. Black probably won't lie on e5 because after f4 there are real problems. But black is rewarded here by moving the pawn to d6. The most interesting in that according to statistic only one of 3 people do this, which is surprising. But this move exists, and if black knows it, then everything is fine with him. Take e6, open move, bishop closes on e6. White of course has an extra pawn, but look that black already has all his pieces open and developed. Knight g4 is active. Knight d4 is threatening. Overall it's not worth it, but there is such fear and many people are afraid to play the knight on f6. But now if suddenly you play a central opening with black, then don't be afraid. Does white do next? They develop the knight on c3, and here is a fork. Some develop the bishop very aggressively, while others are calmer. Let's see the main line and then main line bishop b4. After entering the bishop b4, black of course develops comfortably and begins to put pressure on the knight with the king. We make a bishop entry on d2, block the pin castling and long castling. That is all this time. White could not have played e5. There would have been a rebound with the king on g4. In turn, if black himself moves the knight to g4, we would simply move the queen to g3. The most natural, put the rook on the queen's file. What could be better? And here, my friends, I would like to outline White's next main strategy. White himself wants to play f3, just if there was an opportunity, then play g4, h4, g5, use the pawn attack, but there is a problem. The problem is that the rook is already on a fill with the queen, and black breaks the center with the move d5, and white attacks on white's king side doesn't even have time to begin, since black will already arrive with d4 and things will get really bad for us. That's why the grandmasters here move the queen to g3. This is a very cool move actually. The idea behind this is that if black wants to eat a pawn for free, then he will get checkmate for free. But I won't go into detail about this right now. If you want to know more about this, go to my website arslanovchess.ru, and there I will tell you more about it. There will also be memory trainers, and you can do it all very effectively, confirm at the variable levels. Today I want to tell you the move with the bishop on c4. This move is cool and works great at the amateur level. Believe me, it's just great. Because he puts a problem into front of black, he puts a trap in front of black. Which one? We just developed stand on the diagonal a2, g8, attack the f7 pawn, and if black plays a break, hits c3, break hits c3, climbs, hits e4, it would seem that. But you and I make the move break hits f6. Now I will move the options slowly, because there is one nuance. We hit his pieces, he hits ours, and it's very difficult for us to visualize. So I'll try to move this as slow as possible. Look, now we've taken his knight away, right? Right. If he takes our bishop to win back, then we take his rook. Everything is simple here. Let's go back. Let's go back. Here we have an extra knight in the moment. And if he takes our queen first, then we take his queen. The queens are equal. If he takes the bishop, we take the rook. We have an extra rook. One move back. Here black can play the rook on e4 and will attack the bishop. Like two pieces are under attack and suddenly they somehow win back. But we will go bishop d5, take the bishop away from attack with an attack on his rook. The rook will already go somewhere there. And we take the pawn and we already have 3 minor pieces against 2. So, friends, I want to say that after the bishop e4 is for white capture, bishop c3, rook e4 already lost due to bishop f7, already lost due to bishop f6. It will not be lost after knight e4 with a very accurate play. I'll break it down for you. And we play queen f4, we just stop putting pressure on the f7 pawn. They can't block our diagonal because we have 2 strikers here. If black seems to be trying to go into hand-to-hand combat, knight beats c3 is played. We take on f7, we check, the king will move away h8. We take the rook and unfortunately black cannot take d1 because checkmate. They don't have a fork on e2 and the queen and king because there is a knight. Therefore something like knight 2 remains here and here we stop. White has an extra exchange. Yes, black has 4 pawns against 2, but an exchange is an exchange. White wants the knight at 3, the rook at 1. They must bring the game as a whole to victory. So you see on knight 4 you have a great move with queen f4. What should black do next? Look, if the d6 knight plays and defends f7 pawn, then the game will also end beautifully. Rook d6, cd, queen f7, check, king moves away and checkmate with the support of now bishop c3. And black is also trying to move his queen to e7. Tries because it seems like a development. The pawn was covered, everything is in order. Okay, for exactly half a move, because after rooks e1 you already have to surrender. Why give up? Because after a move around d6 we simply sacrifice the rook and put the same checkmate. Queen, queen, queen. How can black hold this position? In fact, they can. Indeed, they should play the knight on f6. Don't be afraid of doubling pawns. Bishop f6, queen f6, queen f6, gf. We won't go here, of course, because we came here to attack. Therefore, we develop the knight on f3 and move the knight to g5. And here we stop. White position with compensation. We have the advantage of 2 bishops. We are looking at the king side, the h7 pawn hangs under the bishop and knight. Black, of course, can protect her, the rook can be placed on e1, fight for the e5, and start moving pawns on the king's side. Black has an extra pawn. This is, they do not have a pair of bishops, and the knight on f6 and the king's side are always under fire from white pieces. And I want to point out once again that black seems to survive here only with a very precise order of moves. Fact, in black you shouldn't get involved in this adventure at all. This is done only by very advanced players or those who do not consider taking u4. This entry is of course d6, that is, this move allows black to open a diagonal to the light squared bishop, and they may be postponing the knight exchange and subsequent capture on e4, and now we're playing f3. Remember, I noted that we would like to play c3 right away, but then it will be d5, and now there is no d5 because we developed the bishop on this very diagonal. Black tries to play here when the knight attacks e5. We will then move away with bishop b3. The position is complex with both chances. Let's go back to the beginning. I left another line along the path here. This is a bishop move to e7, which could theoretically be mad. This move is not as passive as you might think because black wants to play the d5 pawn. That is, if we do everything by analogy with the bishop option on b4, let's go to bishop d2. Then after d5 we capture figure 3 as if the position simply becomes absolutely equal. It's not clear why white went into this very central debit at all. Instead of moving the bishop on d2, you just need to play a little more aggressively. Bishop c4 to start, put g8 on the a2 diagonal, control the d5 square. Now black is castled, we play bishop d2, they now play d6 because they have no move on d5, 3-0 and bishop e6 and retreated. Took bishop e6, fe and f4, we paused here because it's important to outline our plans. What do we want here? We want to play the knight h3, then h3, g4, g5. If we see that he's trying to play e5, then we push the pawn, then knight f3, h3, g4, g5, then only stupid piece we have here is the bishop on d2. This seems to be a big problem for this debut overall. And this is probably all I want to tell you here. And before we go to the general results, I would like to point out one more line that can be found here. This is a move similar to knight on c6. That is, the move knight c6 is generally possible, but it's not generally good, because you are simply taking the pawn on e5. He takes there with a knight and you can play like k3 and f4 or h4 right away. Therefore, black really must take this d4 pawn, so to speak. If they are trying to play the d6 pawn type, then remember that if you want to play a central opening, then you will have a priority on developing in the queen's side pieces. Sooner or later black takes all this. And only now look at knight c6. You can simply connect it with bishop b5. There's no longer need to retreat headlong. And here I want to offer a cool plan. Knight, knight, and you make fianchetto to this bishop, like this. And based on the central opening, only our bishop is no longer stupid on d2, but already on b2. And our main idea is to jump with the knight d5 and g5. If you ask me at what level this is retreated, I will say that 1600. And below would work ideal. The above should also work, but just if you already have 1600. Then in the theory you are ready to play more complex openings such as the Italian, maybe the Renaissance game or the Spanish game and so on. While in general the central opening can be, I would say, better from the point of view of memorization and lack of theory, because look, if you say play here with the f3 knight, then the opponent, of course almost everyone, answers c6, and at the same time they can go to the Felder defense. They can go into the Russian game with knight f6. After the move knight f6, if you say play a Spanish game, then you have to deal with Janisch gambit, you have to deal with the classic answer, the Berlin variation. In the Italian game, after bishop 4, the same thing happens. There is bishop e5. That is, in general, there are many different lines which again are not difficult to remember, but you still need to study something there. Another thing, e4, e5, d4, bang, that's it. You immediately determine the position. Then you just keep in mind the plan that you have the sun, that the knight goes c3, the queen likes like this, bishop somewhere d2, 3 zeros. So I want to say that the debut is cool, ideal for an amateur. You have a great chance of getting exactly what you just watched and learned. And don't forget to go to my website, because everything you saw here you can practice on memory simulators, tests, tasks and so on. International Master Shamil Arslanov was with you. Tell your friends, put some likes, subscribes, all the best, see you soon. Bye.